Now I know Freak does an amazing job with these champion spotlights, but I also understand that he's quite the busy man, so I decided that I'd help him out and make an in-depth Renata Glass champion spotlight for him to copy off of in case he needs some inspiration. Also, before you flood the comments, of course I know I'm actually copying him if anything, and like you, I'm looking forward to the official spotlight when the champion gets released, but for now I'll make my own on Renata, or as she calls herself,
it's Miss Glass, if you value your life.
Let's look at her kit. Renata Glasc's passive is called Leverage. When Renata attacks an enemy, it marks the target dealing max health magic damage if the target was previously unmarked. This scales with levels and AP. Allies can consume this mark with their attack or abilities, dealing the same amount of damage. And Renata may only have one mark of leverage at a time. While this may sound confusing, the best way to think of it is like a combination of Misfortune passive and Leona passive. If you hit an opponent for the first time, it will proc the leverage damage, but not proc any bonus damage if you hit that target again. But you can get around this in two ways. Either your ally can then hit that champion to clear the mark so you can apply it again, or you can juggle the mark cleverly by choosing to throw an auto onto a minion, which will then have the mark, and then you can attack an enemy champion again, reapplying your passive damage, which is a very good way to trade with opponents as a support. Next up we have her Q, Handshake. Renata throws out a robotic arm that will damage and root the first enemy hit for 1 second, which does sadly indeed include minions, so you can stand behind them to avoid this ability. You may then reactivate your Q Handshake to throw the rooted target in any direction that you choose. The way you do this is Q opponent, then put your cursor anywhere around them in the direction you want to fling them and press Q again. I like to think of this ability a bit like if they combine Thresh Hook and Flay into one ability without you having to fly in to pull it off. Now another part of Q is the fact that if you throw the target that you've rooted into an enemy, then that enemy will take the same amount of damage as the initial Q, but heads up, the thrown target will take no additional damage, so I can imagine you can use this second Q pull to better push waves or jungle. If you have her throw your rooted target into another enemy champion, then the champion that got hit by the thrown champion will take the damage indicated and will also be stunned for 0.5 seconds, which is kinda cool but hard to pull off. One cool thing I was able to accidentally do was throw this Ahri into tower for a turret shot using this ability, which felt pretty awesome but sadly didn't lead to anything more. The last thing I need to mention about Miss Glasc's Q is the sad reality that you can't flash buffer her Q to root enemies further away, even though it looks like it would work. I tried to pull off this maneuver several times, including once in game, and while it does look like the enemy does get hit by the handshake, it sadly has no effect, so I hope either they change the visual down the line, or allow people to buffer flash with this ability, which would enable more cool plays. Enough about her Q, let's look into her W ability, Bailout. Renata chooses either an ally or herself to receive a buff, which does several things, and the way I like to look at it, it's kind of like a Lulu E combined with old Yorick ult and Zilean ult. The first buff is attack speed, which starts off at 30% attack speed, but increases to 60% attack speed over 5 seconds. The second buff she grants her target is movement speed towards enemies, which starts off at 20% movement speed, but increases to 40% after 5 seconds. Now all these percentages will depend on what rank you have this ability, and they do also scale with AP, so keep an eye out for that. Also, don't forget the movement speed is only towards enemies, so there's no point casting this on yourself to move faster around the map. Now, as you may already know, if the champion with this buff dies during its 5-second duration, they instead don't die but gain full health, which appears as gray health that decays very rapidly over 3 seconds, and when that runs out, then they truly die. You can delay this death with effects such as healing or Zhonya's, however, which is quite nice and can be rather useful, because if the decaying person gets a takedown, which means assist or shutdown while they were decaying, then they stop decaying and rather return back to normal with 35% max health. While this might sound rather complicated, it really boils down to this. If you see an enemy with gray health, you should do one of two things. Either make sure no one dies around them so that they can't revive, or kill them again as fast as possible before they can revive. If you, on the other hand, are the person with decaying health, then your mission is to try your absolute best to find someone to give death to, or else you will be the one receiving that gift. Now that we have her most confusing ability out of the way, let's look at Renata's E, Loyalty Program. Renata Glass sends out Chemtech rockets that shield allies and will damage and slow all enemies as well. Now this ability has 3 different hitboxes, which can best be demonstrated in this example. These effects will occur on people around Renata in a circle, in a line in the direction she shot this ability, and finally in another circle explosion where this ability ends up. This ability reminds me a bit of Lux W and E combined together into one ability, but a lot shorter range, and overall from the games that I've played, it's been a little bit underwhelming. Alright, now let's get to the moment you've all been waiting for, and talk about her ultimate ability, Hostile Takeover. Renata Glass sends out a cloud of chemicals that causes enemies to go berserk, increasing their attack speed and forcing them to basic attack anything around them. Berserked enemies prioritize attacking their own allies, then neutral units, then Renata Glass's team, then Renata Glass herself. This ability looks so cool, like really cool. It's a huge slow-moving red cloud of doom that if you come in contact with it, you're going to lose all control for 2.25 seconds at max rank, and your champion is going to hit any allies nearby. Now while this ability sounds crazy OP and is indeed amazing when you hit it, it's a lot like Maokai ult. It's huge and hard to miss, but also if you aren't using it at enemies who are really close by, and I mean super close by, they are legit just going to walk away from it and it's really going to make you sad. It happened to me way too much, and if you have played Maokai before, well, you really know that feeling. While it does go very far, it takes a whopping 3.1-ish seconds to reach its full destination. And even worse, it has an almost full second channel time where she announces to the world she is going to ult, so it's time to get out of the way. The trick to getting around this, however, is combining your ult with an immediate flash, which will let you push it forward faster towards unsuspecting enemies, or even allow you to redirect it altogether if enemies might get out of its target zone. Now, you might think that you can Q root people and then ult on top of them to further CC them, but as you can see, the root will actually end before your ult gets there, so if they have some form of untargetability like Zhonya's wind wall or some type of mobility, they might get away. You can counteract this, however, quite simply with a nice CC lock by landing your root, channeling your ult, then flashing forward before it finishes buffering so that they can get taunted right as the root ends and truly can't do anything about it, and a combo like this is going to really make you the star of your next big teamfight and a big reason why I can't wait to play Renata Glass on the live servers. That's all I have for this video today, as I just wanted to go over all of her abilities in detail. In the future, I will go more in depth into Renata Glass by looking at her laning prowess, matchups, runes, items, and etc. But I'm going to leave that for my Renata Glass Will It Support video that I'll be working on and should have coming out right as she hits the live servers, so subscribe if you're interested in seeing a video like that. But thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I want to wish you good luck if you're trying to get this champion on the PvE. Those queues are an absolute shit show. Renata Glass. I tried